What is The Normal Heart? The Normal Heart is a play by Larry Kramer that takes place during the initial phases of the AIDS epidemic in the early 80s.
It was kind of the experience of not just the gay culture, but culture in general within the city as this new disease was coming to light.
People weren't really paying attention to it because it was seen as a gay disease. Nobody cared, including the medical community who, it's their job to care, but they didn't.
Oh, it's just their problem. It's not going to affect, straights or us normal people.
Which is, I think, their biggest hurdle is just getting people to care.
It sort of follows Ned Weeks, who's the main character.
He is not the easiest guy to get along with. He's definitely opinionated. He's definitely very passionate about his views.
And that character itself is based on the playwright's sort of life in that time. So Ned is very much Larry.
Larry Kramer is a brilliant man. He is an AIDS activist. He is a writer. The more things that I view about him, the more I realize what a phenomenal man he is.
I want to have lunch with Larry Kramer because I think he's really awesome.
ACT UP and the AIDS communities that are out there are basically started because he pushed for these kind of things. Even watching some interviews with Larry Kramer in the 80s, there are things that he said that are actually directly out of the script as well. So you can tell that he's taken his own personal experiences and put them into this play.
One of the major things that I've noticed through my volunteer work, especially in trying to reach out to the youth, a lot of them I found really don't know all that much about the history of this particular branch of the human rights movement.
I feel like it's a story that hasn't really been told very much.
The early 80s and the AIDS epidemic is generally referred to as the minefield that we don't walk into.
Personally, my knowledge and my background of what AIDS is, I really had no idea. I thought it was, for the longest time, I just thought it was something going on in Africa that we really didn't worry about here. The events of the story take place just after I was born. So it's like, whoa, I was alive when this happened. So that's scary.
That I can't imagine what that period in human history was like. I can't imagine a world where half of my friends would die.
It's something that can really open people's eyes to it and put faces to it.
They need to know the history and in order to really know what they're fighting for.
Something becomes a lot more real when face is put to it, And I think that's what this play does.
This play helps us to remember what we've been through and why.
It's very heavily emotional. There isn't a single scene in the show that is not going to create some kind of very significant effect in the audience.
There's not really any minor characters in this play, and they all have their moments of where they show their true feelings, and it's an all-out passionate speech or a deep emotional where they just let go.
We have an immensely talented cast and a wonderful director.
Our cast is really great, and they all work really well together, which is, as a director, I don't think I could ask for anything better, because I think it's going to be really beautiful.
I think it's a really important piece of theater. I think it's something that a lot of people need to see.
There's a lot of prejudice that had to be overcome and still needs to be overcome.
There is still a great deal of stigma attached to HIV and AIDS.
We still have so far to go, and so much more that needs to be done.
I feel like this show and every show like it is an opportunity to reach out and perhaps help.
The Normal Heart is about caring for people, no matter what.
That you need to fight for what you believe in.
If you really think it's worthwhile, you need to fight like hell.
Fighting for the person you love, fighting to stay alive.
Gay or straight, man or woman, sick or not sick, It's all about everybody being the same.
We all have a normal heart,